There are luxury SUVs, and then there are SUVs that make you question what luxury is supposed to look like. Imagine you're standing outside a 5-star hotel. A black SUV slowly pulls up. No loud exhaust, no aggressive engine sound, just silence. The door opens. The interior lights come alive, and for a second everyone around you stops looking at the badge and starts looking at the vehicle. Now imagine that badge says Genesis. This is our future-inspired vision of the 2027 Genesis G-100. And if Genesis ever decides to build a flagship SUV above everything else in its lineup, it could look something like this. Welcome back to Motor Show Plus. Forget the usual luxury SUV formula for a moment. The G100 shouldn't try to look like every other expensive SUV on the road. It should look unmistakably Genesis. Elegant, minimal, confident, and quietly intimidating. The front could be the first major statement. Instead of an oversized, complicated grille, imagine a clean interpretation of the Genesis crest. The famous two-line lighting signature could become much wider and thinner, almost like a digital signature across the front of the vehicle. The hood could rise gently from the nose, creating a powerful but sophisticated profile. There would be no need for dozens of vents. No unnecessary fake openings, just a smooth surface designed around the idea of controlled luxury. And then, the headlights, ultra-thin, intelligent, almost invisible when they're switched off. But when the G100 wakes up, the entire front could transform. That would be the kind of detail that makes a luxury vehicle feel special. Now walk toward the side. This is where the size becomes obvious. The G100 could have an extremely long wheelbase, giving the designers enough space to create a true executive cabin. The roofline could remain relatively upright instead of falling dramatically like a coupe. Why? Because passengers come first. Rear seat headroom, legroom, easy entry, and a feeling of space. The body could sit on enormous 23-inch wheels, with a 24-inch option for an ultra-luxury package. But rather than using a complicated wheel design, Genesis could choose something extremely clean, almost architectural. The wheels would look like part of the vehicle, rather than an accessory added afterward. Flush door handles would disappear into the body. The side glass could be surrounded by dark trim, and the rear windows could feature advanced privacy glass. Then comes one of the most interesting possibilities. Imagine the G100 using electronically controlled doors. The driver approaches, the vehicle recognizes the key, the handle presents itself, the door opens smoothly, and the cabin lighting turns on before you even sit down. It sounds like a small feature, but at this level, small details create the luxury experience. Now look at the rear. Forget giant fake exhaust outlets. Imagine a completely clean tailgate, two-line taillights wrapping around the corners, a subtle Genesis emblem, and a wide, sculpted rear bumper. The entire design could look almost like a piece of furniture. That is the direction Genesis could take. Not aggressive, not flashy, just expensive looking. But now let's talk about something much more important than appearance: the way this SUV moves. A flagship G100 could potentially be designed around an advanced electrified powertrain. Imagine a large battery pack underneath the floor, two high-output electric motors, intelligent all-wheel drive, and enough instant torque to move this giant SUV with surprising confidence. You wouldn't press the accelerator and wait for the engine to build power. You'd simply press and go. But the goal wouldn't be a supercar launch every time. The real magic would be effortless acceleration. Overtake on a highway, climb a mountain road, merge into traffic. Everything happens smoothly and almost silently. That's the kind of performance that makes sense for a flagship luxury SUV. Now imagine the G100 approaching a corner. Sensors scan the road. The suspension adjusts. The power distribution changes. The vehicle remains stable. The driver doesn't have to think about what's happening underneath. The technology simply works. And that's an important difference. A luxury car shouldn't constantly remind you how advanced it is. It should make advanced technology feel normal. Now let's step inside. This is where Genesis could really separate itself. Imagine opening the rear door and seeing two individual executive seats. Not a basic three-person bench. 2 private luxury chairs. Each passenger gets their own controls, their own climate zone, their own entertainment screen, their own lighting, and their own massage settings. The center console could contain wireless charging, storage, cooled compartments, and physical controls for the most important functions. No need to reach forward toward the dashboard. Everything you need is right beside you. Now imagine pressing a button. The rear seat reclines. The footrest rises. The window shades close. The privacy glass becomes darker. And the cabin lighting changes from bright white to a warm amber tone. Suddenly, you're not sitting in an SUV. You're sitting in a private lounge. And that's exactly the experience a flagship should provide. Now look forward. The dashboard could be completely different from traditional luxury interiors. Imagine one continuous digital display stretching across the cabin, but Genesis could avoid filling every inch with screens. Instead, the display would sit behind a minimalist dashboard. Real metal controls could remain for important functions. A crystal-style controller could operate the infotainment system, and premium materials could cover the surfaces that passengers actually touch. Leather, wood, metal, glass, maybe even sustainable materials made from recycled or plant-based sources. The idea would be luxury without visual overload. Then comes the sound system. Imagine a premium multi-speaker setup designed specifically around the G-100's cabin. The speakers could be hidden inside the doors and headrests. The sound could adjust automatically depending on where passengers are sitting. Choose music, and the entire cabin becomes an acoustic room. Choose silence, and the vehicle isolates you from the outside world. For many luxury buyers, that silence might be more valuable than horsepower. Now imagine the G-100 at night. The road is dark. The cabin is almost completely black. Only thin ambient light strips remain visible. The driver looks ahead. The windshield becomes a digital information surface. Navigation arrows appear exactly where the next turn is located. Important warnings are projected naturally into the driver's field of view. The system isn't screaming for attention. It is quietly assisting. That's what future luxury should feel like. Now let's talk about practicality. A flagship SUV can't only be beautiful. It has to be useful. Imagine a huge cargo area, a power-operated tailgate, a lower loading floor, and enough room for luggage from a long family trip. The third row, if offered, could fold completely flat. The second row could also move electronically. So the G-100 could transform from an executive vehicle into a family SUV within seconds, and that flexibility could be one of its biggest strengths. Now imagine Genesis offering several personalities, a standard luxury version, a long wheelbase executive version, and perhaps a performance-focused Magma-inspired model. The performance version could receive a more aggressive front design, larger brakes, sportier suspension, different wheels, and much stronger electric motors. The interior could use dark leather with performance-inspired accents. The suspension would become firmer, the steering would become more responsive, and the G-100 would suddenly feel much more athletic. But there would still be one problem: weight. A giant luxury electric SUV could be extremely heavy. So Genesis would need advanced materials and clever engineering to keep efficiency under control. Lightweight aluminum, advanced battery technology, optimized aerodynamics, and intelligent energy management could all become important. The goal wouldn't simply be maximum range. It would be usable range. Imagine taking this SUV on a long road trip. You leave the city with a full battery. The navigation automatically plans charging stops. The vehicle calculates traffic, weather, and elevation. It tells you where to stop, how long to charge, and when you'll arrive. You don't need to worry about the technology. You simply enjoy the journey. Now imagine arriving at a luxury resort. The G-100 automatically lowers its suspension. The doors open. The interior lights glow, and the vehicle becomes part of the entire arrival experience. That is the kind of image Genesis needs. Because luxury isn't just about the vehicle itself. It's about the feeling created around it. And this is where the G-100 could become interesting. It wouldn't need to copy a Mercedes-Maybach. It wouldn't need to imitate a Range Rover. And it certainly wouldn't need to pretend to be a Rolls-Royce. Genesis could create its own definition of modern luxury: quiet, minimal, technological, and unmistakably Korean. But there is something we need to make absolutely clear. The 2027 Genesis G-100 used in this video is a future-inspired concept. Genesis has not officially confirmed a production vehicle with this exact name, design, or specifications. The powertrain, horsepower, range, interior features, and pricing discussed here are conceptual possibilities, not official specifications. Genesis has, however, shown its intention to expand further into the luxury SUV market, with concepts and future models pointing toward larger flagship vehicles. And that's why the idea of a G-100 is so fascinating. Because the question isn't whether Genesis understands luxury, it already does. The real question is, how far will Genesis take it? Imagine 5 years from now, a huge Genesis arrives at a hotel. The driver gets out, the rear door opens. The passenger steps onto the pavement. The door closes automatically. The SUV drives away almost silently. People watch it disappear, and someone asks, "What was that?" The answer? Genesis. That's the impact a true flagship should have. Not because it is loud, not because it has the biggest engine, but because it feels like something you haven't seen before. Now imagine the final reveal. A dark studio, one spotlight. The G-100 sits completely still. The camera moves across the front. The Genesis emblem appears. The two-line headlights turn on. The wheels begin to rotate. The doors open. The interior glows. Then the vehicle moves forward. No dramatic engine roar, just a deep cinematic sound and silence. The camera follows the SUV onto an empty highway. It disappears into the distance, and the screen fades to black. One sentence appears: "The next level of Genesis." So tell me, if Genesis built a flagship SUV like this, would you choose it over the Mercedes-Maybach GLS? Would you take it over a Range Rover, or would the Rolls-Royce Cullinan still be impossible to beat? And what powertrain would you choose? Electric, hybrid, or V6/V8? Drop your answer in the comments. Because the future luxury SUV market is about to become even more competitive, and Genesis may be closer to the top than many people expect. If you enjoy luxury SUVs, future cars, Genesis concepts, Mercedes-Maybach, Range Rover, Rolls-Royce, and automotive innovation, subscribe to Motor Show Plus, because the next luxury king might not come from where you expect. It might come from Korea.